Open your mind.
Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Internet Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And myself, Stephen George.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 16th of January, show 28. And it's been a bit of a rush. We've been last minute things at the going on.
I've an evening paper under my arm.
That's it. Steve was doing one of his mighty dashes again. Now, what we normally do is we normally go through all the communication channels and we go through a few bits and pieces and a few notices. What we're going to do is we're going to bypass all that for the time being because we have Ted Gunderson on the show with us. And Ted's actually on a cell phone. And unfortunately, we don't know, although it's powered, we don't know how long we're going to get out of the cell phone. So what we're going to do is we're going to get Ted in straight away. And we're going to have a chat with Ted. And then we probably have Ted on for about an hour and a half, probably about an hour, I'd say, being on cell phone. And then what we'll do is we'll go through all the bits and pieces that we normally say at the start of the show, because there is a bit of information that we have to talk about anyway. So we'll do that after we have to speak with Ted. So without further ado, I'd like to, just a quick introduction is, Ted Gunderson is a retired head of FBI, Special Agent Los Angeles Division. And Ted, before he retired, I believe he had 700 people under him, and he had a budget of around 22 million. And Ted basically retired and went off and did some private work, private investigation work, and that led him into a lot of information and a lot of things going on that obviously he didn't realise. So this is why he's on the show. He's going to tell us all about it. So we'll just bring in Ted. Ted, are you there?
I'm here. Thank you very much for the invitation. It's great to speak to my friends in Ireland and England and Scotland.
That's great, Ted. Thanks. Good evening, and thanks for coming on to the show. As I said, Ted, Steve, you want to say hello to Ted there as well?
Hi, Ted. A very good afternoon, or good evening, or good morning to you. I'm not sure exactly what time you are. I'm sure it's morning time there, is it?
Just past 11 o'clock over there.
AM?
AM.
It will be AM. Yeah, so good morning, Ted.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. How are you folks doing?
Not so bad. Yourself?
Good.
We're just getting everything warmed up down this way, Ted. But just for a kind of an introduction for people who don't know you, Ted, and I'll just say that again, and you can just confirm it. You were the special agent. You were the head of FBI Los Angeles Division, and you had about 700 people under you and a budget of 22 million. And you retired, I think, in the late 70s. Is that correct?
Yeah, I retired March of 1979, and after spending 27 years in the FBI, I went in as an FBI agent for 9 years, and then I rose up through the ranks, and as I said, at the time of my retirement, I was in charge of most of Southern California. It was one of the top executives in the FBI at the time. In fact, I was interviewed and considered for the director's job in 1978.
Wow, that's fantastic. And obviously, throughout your career, you must have seen some things, and you must have been involved with a lot of kind of very sensitive and issues that you couldn't really, talk to friends or family about while you're working. Is anything that comes to mind which is something that you were involved in, which is quite hairy, that you can talk about?
Well, I was involved in quite a few sensitive matters that I cannot discuss, and since I left the FBI, it's been an altogether different story, and I can discuss some of my cases, although I have to be careful because a lot of my information comes from confidential informants. Can you hear me?
Yeah, fine. Go ahead, Ted. Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, I didn't hear if didn't know if you were on or not. But anyway, but right after I retired, by the way, before I start the show with you, how did you hear about me? How do you know about me?
Well, basically, Ted, I came across your seminars that you did over the internet. When I started doing the research into what's going on with the Illuminati and the global elite, you just kind of, when somebody opens the door a little bit, you want to open the door a bit more. And I started to do a load of research. And I came across your seminars, the one that you did, which we're going to talk about hopefully tonight, with Linda, in 2003 regarding the Satanism in the CIA. And it really moved me, what you talked about, because, I could tell from your background and your experience that you wanted facts. It wasn't hearsay. it wasn't Chinese whispers, that you wanted facts. You either wanted the paperwork to show the information, or you wanted to see it for yourself. And you put in a lot of work and a lot of investigation into the cases you were working on. So I think, that's very credible from where I stand. And I'm sure Steve would be the same way, say the same thing, that, you can't get more credible than black and white evidence and proof, and somebody that's seen it and been there. So that's how I kind of got to know you. And obviously Anthony said that he was a personal friend of yours, so obviously that's where we said, well, let's get Ted on and talk about his experiences. So that's how we got to know you, Ted.
Well, I'm flattered, and I appreciate the opportunity to get my message out in Europe. And because I have certainly been vocal here in the United States to the extent that it's been detrimental, and I'm not complaining, detrimental to my personal activities and my personal health and so forth. But anyway, be that as it may, I'm on a roll, I'm on a path, and I won't deviate from it. That's all.
Well, that's excellent. I mean, that really stands to you. This is one of the things. It's about, getting up and doing something about it rather than sitting back and letting it happen. And obviously, we kind of talked briefly before we came on live on the radio, and just to let people know that, you've had a few attempts on your life. They have tried to kill you. If you just want to elaborate on that, Ted, and just kind of tell us your experiences on that.
Well, yes, before I became real well known, I'm pretty well known now because I guess I'm all over YouTube and all over the internet, but before I became real well known back in 1982, I had my own private investigation firm. I was working on the Jeffrey McDonald case. The McDonald case involved a large-scale drug cover-up by a rogue element within our government. I want to make it very clear, though, before I go into the show, that there are a lot of good people in the Army and the military and in the civil service and in the government and the FBI and the CIA. A lot of good people. Most 99% of them are good. But there is an element within these organizations that is involved behind these covert activities, and I call them the fourth branch of our government. See, our forefathers established the legislative, executive, and judicial branch. I call this the fourth branch. I call it the rogue, the government criminal enterprise. And these people are all out for money, and we're talking about drugs, and we're talking about missing children and sex slaves, and so on and so forth. So, but before I really became pretty well known, as I am now, I understand, I particularly on the Jeffrey McDonald case, because it involved large-scale Army drug operation, bringing drugs in plastic bags in the body cavities of the dead GIs, and it was cover-up. It was a cover-up. It was triple murder, and it was a cover-up. It was terrible. But anyway, within 10 months of entering the case, he'd been tried and convicted, Dr. McDonald had, of murdering his wife and 2 children within 10 months of entering the case, and he was serving 3 consecutive life sentences. I obtained a signed confession from a girl named Helena Stokely, and she said that Dr. McDonald did not commit the murders. They were committed by her satanic cult group. And the reason for the cover-up is because the satanic cult, her satanic cult group, were distributing the drugs that were being flown in from Vietnam in the body cavities of the GIs. They were distributing them up and down the East Coast, and the higher-ups in the drug operation did not approve of them going in and murdering the McDonald family, but since they did, they had to cover it up, because if this cult was exposed, it would expose the whole operation across the country.
Yeah.
And I'm getting involved in that case, and the people in the government, this rogue criminal element within the government, didn't like it, and of course, and so that's when my security problems really, really became serious. For example, I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
On one occasion, I lived in Westwood, California. I lived on the ground floor of a duplex, and the landlady lived up above, and also it was an L-shaped building. And one night, she came in and parked her car at 1:30 in the morning, and there were 2 men sitting across from my front door, and my front door opened up into the street. And one of the men got out and came over to her and asked her if she knew where Ted Gunderson lived. Well, fortunately, through divine intervention, I don't know about your faith or not, but I have a very strong faith. Through divine intervention, I did not go home that night. God led me in another direction. I did not know those men were waiting for me. And from there on, I made some phone calls to my sources and my confidential informants, and I found out I had a contract out on me. And so then I had a problem with taking the contract off. So what I did is I arranged to meet with an individual here in Los Angeles who was high up in those circles, drug circles, illegal drugs. He was known as the cocaine king of the West Coast, as a matter of fact. And along with 3 other of my associates, I set up an appointment. I knew if there were 4 of us, they wouldn't take us all out. I didn't think so anyway. And I knocked on this door, and I was met at the door by an individual who I recognized as having been a hitman, to be honest with you, from some of my other work. And he led me into a parlor, all of us in, and then we sat down. He said that the cocaine king would be with us very shortly. He didn't describe him as cocaine king, but he said he'd be with us shortly. And what happened is a little dog about 8 or 10 inches tall and about 8 or 10 inches long came in while the 4 of us were sitting in this room and smelled all 4 of us, and then laid down at my feet and went to sleep. And when the king, I'll call him the king, I don't want to identify him. When the king came in, he says, first thing he said was, "My dog likes you, I like you." And I'm saying to myself, I'm sure glad he likes me, right? So anyway, I had an artist's conception that I'd worked on, attempted contract killing of another individual. I had an artist's conception of one of the drivers of the car. And that was the reason for the hit being put on me, because I was getting too close to them to identify them and so on and so forth. And as a matter of fact, the fellow that answered the front door on this occasion was the person who had the artist's conception on. So I'm right in the lion's den at that point, but no turning back. And so he asked the other 3 individuals in the room to leave. And so he and I are sitting there. He pulls out the artist's conception. First thing he asked me is, "How many children do you have?" And I told him, and I knew that was an indirect threat to my family if I didn't play my cards right. And then he pulled the artist's conception out, and he said, "Who gave you this? Who did this?" And the artist's conception was a picture of the guy that answered the front door. And when we knocked on it, and so I said, "Look, the person that gave me that was one of the employees of the victim who had been shot 5 times and survived." And so without going into a lot of detail how he saw this individual, he happened to see him in the parking lot at around 6 o'clock that particular night, and the victim came out around midnight, and a gunman came out of the bushes with a mask on and shot him 5 times. He survived, by the way. His name is Robert Ferrante. I can give you his name. He's a victim. He's not a subject. And anyway, as a result of me taking the accountant aside and putting him under hypnosis and doing the artist's conception, that's why I had this artist's conception with me.
Yeah.
So the cocaine king of the West Coast pulled it out and handed it to me and said, "Who gave this to you?" And I said, "Look, if you're going to harm the person or there's going to be harm come upon him, I'm not going to tell you. I'll take the heat myself." And he was kind of upset about that. He said, "Well, I didn't say I was going to do anything to him." I said, "Okay, fine. If you promise you won't harm him, I'll tell you who gave it to him." And I explained that I got it from the accountant who walked across the parking lot about 6 o'clock that night. So he says, "Just a minute, I'll be right back." So he left and went into another room, obviously made a phone call. He came back. He says, "You're right. You have a contract on you." He said, "I can take one contract off, but I can't take the other one off." So I didn't know it at the time. I had 2 contracts on me. And the one contract was by the Israeli mafia, to be honest with you, because they were involved in the shooting of the gentleman, Robert Ferrante. And the second contract was by the Satanic Cult because of the McDonald Case. So I told him, I said, "I appreciate it very much. Take the one hit off. I'll see what I can do about the other one." And he told me, this is on a Monday, he said, don't go to your office or your home until Friday. And so I didn't. I went and checked in a motel and paid cash, and didn't move from that room for 4 or 5 days. And that was it. Then I went back, and then I had a problem with this other contract. The other contract was put out on me by the Satanic cults out of Houston, Texas, and according to my sources. So at that point, I figured, well, I got one hit taken off. I mean, now I got to take the other one off. I don't know how to do it. In the meantime, I'm going underground. So I drove to Dallas, Texas. I had a friend of mine drive me to Dallas, Texas. And it's a 21-hour drive, and I slept the whole time because I hadn't slept in a week in that hotel room. I'm sitting in the room with a gun under my pillow. And every time somebody would come walking down the hall, I'd wake up, of course. But anyway, I went to Dallas, Texas, about 1,500 miles from Los Angeles. I had contacts there, and I went underground for 6 months. And then I was able to get the second hit taken off of me by developing a source at a high level in the cult. So anyway, that's just part of the story. The other story is kind of interesting. Are you there still?
Yeah, it's incredible. Go ahead, Ted. Yeah.
Hope I'm not putting you to sleep.
No, it sounds like something out of CSI Miami. It's so unbelievable. Although it's true, obviously this is your experience, but it just sounds, it's so far away from what the normal man on the street is used to. To say that, it goes to this level, it's unbelievable. But no, go ahead, Ted. We're fascinated this end.
Well, and then the other problem I had was I found out I was under investigation by the FBI. And while I'm in Dallas, I find out about this. And my sources inside the government told me that they were going to indict me on a Tuesday. So I knew what they were going to charge me with, and I went. This was a week before, about 5 days before Tuesday. It was on about a Wednesday or Thursday before the Tuesday they were going to indict me. So I took 3 polygraph examinations. And proved that I was not involved in any criminal activity, and I gave it to my attorney in Dallas, Doug Mulder, who's an outstanding attorney there, former district attorney, and told Doug, give this to the foreman of the grand jury and also to the U.S. attorney. The U.S. attorney's name was William Alexander. So I passed 3 polygraph tests. I gave the test to my attorney, who gave them to Bill Alexander with instructions that he given to the foreman of the grand jury, and I prevented myself from being indicted for criminal acts. Now, that's important because if I had been indicted for criminal acts, it cost thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to hire an attorney to defend yourself. So I was fortunate. I nipped it in the bud right then and there. And then the other, so I was able to skirt around from the FBI investigation on me, which was a phony investigation. And then the other situation is the FBI planted a girl on me named Pam Fawcett, and I named her because she disappeared, and to try to set me up on a drug deal. And she called me one day and said, I need to talk to you. This was after dealing with her on the phone for 6 months. And I don't need to go into the details of that situation, but anyway, she called me, talked to me, said, I need to talk to you, and she drove from Modesto, California, to Los Angeles. I met her in a parking lot, and she told me the story, how she'd been contacted by the FBI and by a drug enforcement agency, gave me the names of the agents, and how they were trying to set me up on a drug deal through her, and she cooperated to a degree, and then she changed her mind, and that's when she called me. And I said, well, why did you change your mind, Pam? And she said, well, I woke up the other morning and I realized you're the only honest SOB that I've talked to in the last 6 months, so I kind of got a chuckle out of that one. I gave her a polygraph examination, and she passed. I wrote up a memo, a report about Pam. I sent it to a guy named Buck Gravel, who was a top-level executive in the FBI, and I knew him personally. and I knew Buck from Philadelphia. He was head of the bank robbery squad, and I was number 2 man in Philadelphia. And I told Buck, I said, "Dear Buck, first the Dallas Caper meeting where they tried to get me on the criminal acts, and now this." I said, "You guys are Bush." Well, you know what Bush League means. That means you're minor league. And so they didn't like that either. Long story short, I just said, I've had a lot of security problems. And I had another contract put out on me later on, and a guy, a satanic cult, CIA hitman. By the way, again, a lot of people in the CIA are great people, wonderful Americans and all that, but there's this rogue criminal element. Anyway, he came in. I know his name. He came in and sat in my house for 5 hours waiting for me to come home one night. And I didn't go home. I found out about it because the lady of the house is on the 3rd floor. She heard him coming. She heard him sit in the living room. The dog went bananas, and she had to close the door. She went to her phone to call the police. The phone was dead because he had gone into the kitchen and taken the phone off the hook. And anyway, I didn't go home that night for 5 hours. I didn't go home. Again, divine intervention. I spent the night with a friend, as I did earlier. I was with a friend the night that the landlady was approached about the 2 fellows coming in and sitting in the car across my front door. So God has taken good care of me.
I think you're very lucky, and definitely somebody's looking down on you there, Ted. Ted, let's take it from, after you retired and you start doing some private work. Let's go into the McDonald case and go into what you found in the school and the satanic cult that you come across. And it's basically the disbelief. I mean, people, when they're looking at satanic cults, they're looking at people who abuse kids. Sometimes they think about the person down the road who's living down there, and they're looking at kids. But the information that you have, and obviously we can't mention any names for obvious reasons, but the information that you have, it's not just people like that, but you're talking about politicians, sports stars, movie stars, people in the music business that are involved in child abuse. So can you take us from the McDonald case and then bring us into that information?
Yes, well, as I said, right after I retired, my first major investigation as a private investigator was the Jeffrey McDonald case, and he had been tried, convicted, sentenced to 3 consecutive life sentences. So I entered the case at his request and the request of the defense team. And I went back to North Carolina where the murders occurred. It was at Fort Bragg. His wife and 2 children, one was 2.5, one was 5.5, and they've been brutally slain, multiple knife wounds into their bodies, and so on and so forth. And within 10 months of entering the case, as I said a few moments ago, Lena Stokely gave me a signed confession, and I spent actually about 3 sessions with her, 10 days each session, going into detail after detail after detail, documenting that this was true, that her group was involved in this. It was a Manson-type murder. And they were mad at Dr. McDonald because he was abusive to the GIs that would go to the civilian hospital where he was moonlighting. He worked in the military and civilian hospital. They would go there for treatment, and he was abusive to them, and so on and so forth. So they wanted to, what they did is they had a little ritual ahead of time. It was a satanic cult. And they went in to teach him a lesson, and they were all high on drugs. They probably didn't know exactly what they were doing, except they went crazy, and that's why they slaughtered the whole family. They left him for dead. They thought he died. Fortunately, in a way, it's fortunately lived, but at the same time, the poor man has been in prison now for 30-some years. In spite of the fact that I have this confession from Lena, by the way, Lena died a mysterious death in January 1983. I personally believe she was murdered, but the coroner says otherwise. He said it was a natural death from cirrhosis of the liver and slight pneumonia in each lung. But anyway, I don't need to go into that. I think they murdered her. But Dr. McDonald, my confession was presented to the courts, and because it was a huge drug cover-up, by the way, this is documented in January 1, 1973 in Time magazine, this technique, this procedure bringing the drugs in plastic bags in the body cavities. And so, anyway, so poor Dr. McDonald, the courts ignored my confession, and he's in jail right to this day. Now, going back and looking at the crime scene, evidence was destroyed. Evidence was misplaced. For example, one of the children had skin under her fingernail, and it was given to the chief investigator, William Ivory, and he claims he gave it to the laboratory, and the laboratory claims they never received it. And long story short, nobody knows what happened to that skin. Well, in the meantime, the latest version of it, we have an appeal before the Fourth Circuit, and we found in the evidence that the government had covered up a hair with a root on it underneath the fingernail of one of the children. We did find that in the evidence, and it does not belong to anybody in the McDonald family. There was Dr. McDonald, Kimberly, Kirsten, and his wife, Colette. Anyway, so I went public with this information, and that's when I started having my security problems.
Okay.
And then, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, when you went public with that, where was the time? Does this tie into the underground tunnels you found in the school? Is that the same case or a different case?
Did I find the what?
Yeah, do you know, remember you were talking about the underground tunnels you found underneath the school. Is this the same case, or is that a different case?
This is a different case. That's a different case.
Okay,
that was,
okay.
The McDonald case, I did most of my work in January 1980. In fact, I spent a whole month working the case. And the poor man doesn't have any money, and I kept working. I've worked it for gratis. I probably got $30,000 or $40,000 of my own money into it. But then this other case where I found the tunnels under the school, that was the McMartin case. Did you want me to go into that now, or what?
Yeah, well, just we won't go into too much detail, but what we'll do is touch base on basically the whole thing that you found, the fact that you found the tunnels, and what you feel, or what you know that was involved, and what they were trying to hide.
Yes. Okay. Well, what happened? The McMartin preschool case. It was a school for children from 1, 2 years old up to 5. And in the early 1980s, one of the children came home, 4 or 5 year old boy, and the mother noticed blood in the diaper, and so she started making inquiries, and she found out that the boy, based on what the boy said, that he'd been raped and sexually assaulted, and so that was the beginning of the investigation. The children, she filed a complaint with the police, and the children were interviewed by therapists, and then after the therapist interviewed them, the police interviewed them, and got the statements from them. And the defendants, the McMartin family, who owned the preschool, claimed that the therapist had planted the information in their little minds, and that it was not true, et cetera, et cetera. The authorities went out. The children said there were tunnels under the school, and this is a very affluent neighborhood near the beach, within a couple of blocks of the beach in Manhattan Beach, California. And so the authorities went out looking for the tunnels in 1987. They turned over a few some tile on the floor, and looked around, didn't find anything. And in 1991, I heard that the building had been sold from the McMartin, had been given by the McMartin family to Danny Davis, the attorney, and Danny Davis had sold it to a contractor, and the contractor was tearing down the building and was going to build an office building on there. I heard this. I went to the contractor, and I said, "Please, sir, give me an opportunity to go into that building and check it out." And he did, and I had to sign legal documents assuming liability, et cetera, et cetera. And I hired an archaeologist, Dr. Gary Stickle from UCLA, University of California in Los Angeles. And he brought his team of people in there, and within 34 days, he said that there were tunnels that had been filled in under the school. Now, the way you could tell this is if let's say if you take a knife and go straight down into the earth, maybe 8 or 10 feet, you're going to see the difference in the soil that was filled into the tunnels versus the natural soil in that area. And that was the way he was able to determine it. We also found a 9-foot chamber under one of the classrooms, the dog classroom, which was Ray Bucky. The family was the Virginia McMartin, and there was a grandmother, mother, daughter, son, and so on and so forth. And there was a chamber underneath one of the classrooms, a 9-foot chamber, and the children said that they were taken down there through the tunnels, and in the chamber they had ceremonies. There were adults in robes with candles and nude, no clothes under the robes, and they cut up brown babies. Well, they were human sacrificing brown babies is what it was. And then the children also said that they were taken through the tunnels up into a trap door in the triplex next door, and they were placed on automobiles and taken out into the community and prostituted. We had pictures of the trap door. We had pictures of the tunnel. We documented the tunnel was there. The first trial, Ray Bucky was hung jury. The grandmother was acquitted. This was in the middle of the second trial that we discovered we had tunnels there, Dr. Gary Stickle. And I called the district attorney's office, and I said, we can prove, right in the middle of the second trial, we can prove that there were tunnels under the school and the children were telling the truth. They sent an investigator out named Perez, and he wanted to argue with the archaeologist that there were no tunnels there. He's not an expert. And so that was it. Ray Bucky was acquitted on the second trial, and they got away with it. Now, why the cover-up? Because the children named professional football players. They named professional baseball players. They named actors. They named celebrities. They named the son of one of the most prominent politicians in Los Angeles. But that's not all that I discovered. One of my informants told me that he knew where the kids were taken, and the kids had said that they were placed in an airplane. They went from the school to an airport, small airport away, a distance away. We think it was Hawthorne Airport, and put in private jets and flown up into the mountains. And this is about 100 miles by car, but it's only probably 20 minutes by jet airplane. And they said that there were ceremonies up in the mountains. So I had a tip on where the ceremonies took place, and I went up there. And by the way, the day that this case broke in the newspapers, the house at this location burned down. And I had a tip, and I went up there and took pictures of it, and it was built on the side of the mountain. It was about a quarter of a block long, very massive. You could only see it from the air. You couldn't see it from the ground or from the street. And there was a tower. There were dungeons there. There were ovens. In fact, I went down in the dungeon myself. It was, well, so be it. But anyway, I had this documentation also, and I gave this. I personally called the district attorney, Leo Rubin was her name, and told her about this location of these in the mountains that I think that the kids were taken to. And I told her I'd be glad to cooperate with the DA and go up there and with the kids and see if that was where they were taken. And she wasn't interested. She was not interested. So another huge cover-up. Well, this is all about Satanism and the Illuminati, and these people, this element, has infiltrated every level of society, particularly in the United States. I don't know about England or Scotland or Ireland, but particularly in the United States, they've infiltrated our military intelligence. They've infiltrated the FBI, the CIA, and so on and so forth. And it's when you look at the whole big picture, it's very frightening. But these people need to be exposed, and that's what I'm doing.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's unbelievable for the ordinary man in the street to believe that there's people out there capable of doing, such acts like that, and also that there's people out there who are covering it up, who won't actually expose it for whatever reason. Now, I'm not saying Ireland, UK, or Scotland is any different. We do have a case over here, which I'm sure Steve will probably go into, the Holly Gregg case. If you want to talk to Ted roughly and tell him what's going on over here.
Well, that's a case that's ongoing at the moment in the UK, Ted. It's a Down syndrome girl by the name of Holly Gregg. She's been systematically abused and has been over a number of years. And exactly as you've described there, she was able to name very high-profile individuals as well, namely politicians and local governors, councillors, and there's a complete media blackout on her story. As I said, the story it is kind of all over the internet, but it is. I say, media-wise, there's absolutely nothing in mainstream media, and there is one chap there, Robert Green. He's kind of fighting the case, and he's doing his best to publicise the case and get it onto mainstream media. But he just keeps meeting brick walls at every corner. Say there's absolutely nothing in the news about it. But yeah, there's a mound of information, trawling going across the internet, and as I said, high profile people have been named in that case. So yeah, I mean it is going on over here. Maybe not on the same scale as what's going on in the US, but I mean it definitely is going on. And just on the subject of the whole Satanism, one of our listeners just texted in, and they just said that over here, the confidential police telephone number, she was wondering if maybe you might think that there might be an element of Satanism in the confidential phone number, because the phone number is 1-800-666-111. What do you reckon of that, Ted?
I'd say there's a good possibility of that. I don't have any documentation on it, but I'd say it's a good possibility. The Satanic movement, I have the Satanic account. By the way, my reports and the information I've given you here today is available on a CD that I put out. But I urge you people to go to my website, tedgunderson.net. It's a CD, and it's 52 of my reports, including not only on Satanism, but also on the terrorist movement, which is a phony movement designed to take away our constitutional rights and civil liberties. 52 of my reports, 6,500 pages. It's available to you folks over there. By the way, I do receive mail from England, Korea, and Australia. So, I don't be shy about communicating with me or buying my products. I'll ship them out to you as soon as possible, as soon as I receive the order. It's an international movement. The Illuminati is an international movement. And do you folks, are you familiar with WikiLeaks?
Well, we have heard about WikiLeaks and what's going on. So if you know anything about that, by all means, enlighten us there. That'd be great, Ted.
Well, it's my understanding that there's an individual in Australia who has, through the computer, has been able to come up with obtaining classified documents on a confidential basis. And he's gone into hiding, much similar to what I had to do in the 1980s, early 1980s. And I was wondering if there was any publicity there in England and Ireland.
Well, WikiLeaks, I think he's Swedish, is he?
Yeah,
the chap, he's from Sweden, and we know that they've tried to put him up on a charge of attempted rape or something with a girl or something, and we know that that's their MO. If they don't kill you in a car crash or some kind of accident, they'll try and put a charge on you where you've abused somebody or you've attacked somebody or you did something just to discredit you. And I think that's what they did to the guy. Now, there's kind of arguments for both sides of this WikiLeaks where We didn't, some people are saying that he's actually connected these connections to the CIA, FBI, and it's all kind of pre-planned, or else he hasn't been involved with them and this is what they're doing. So, again, there's a lot of disinformation out there as to what's going on, and it's kind of finding out what the truth is and putting all the other stuff aside,
Yeah, what's your opinion of it? Is it right or wrong, or what's your opinion of the situation?
To be honest with you, Ted, I don't really know enough about it to have an opinion, because I've heard both sides and I haven't really researched both sides as of yet. So I can't really turn around and say for definite what I feel is the right thing. I mean, the guy set up WikiLeaks to get the information out there. But if you look on the other side from a psychological point of view, the powers that be could use him as a person to put out information just to discredit certain countries or certain governments or whatever they're releasing. I mean, if you have good intentions and you work for the government, then the truth should be the truth, and that's the way it should be. And if the government are covering up things and hiding things, then you have to ask yourself, why are they doing that? So, is it the case that he's getting this information and he's putting it out there and that's the truth? Or is he getting information that is given to him from a disinformation point of view? Because, obviously, ourselves running the radio station and other websites and newspapers that are in the kind of alternative media side, we have to be careful that we don't get disinformation. We have to be careful what information we get in and who we speak to, because I don't know whether you heard, Ted, there's a situation at the moment in the UK where there's a chap who infiltrated I think was it Greenpeace or not Greenpeace, they were going to disable some nuclear facility in the UK, and this police went undercover with the group, and apparently they said that the policeman was sympathising with the group, and then he changed and he started working for the group instead of working for the police. So there's this big case that's going on in the UK at the moment, and the chap has now gone into hiding, because they're saying that the chap is saying that he didn't actually go with the group. Everything he did had to be passed by his senior controller in the police. And the police are trying to say that, well, he actually left the police and he joined the group and he was doing things off his own accord and he shouldn't have been doing what he was doing. So there's a big case going on in the UK at the moment. And you know what, Ted, you know what they're like. I mean, they'll try and cover up, they'll try and do as much as they can to discredit somebody so the information doesn't get out, and whatever that way, whatever that means, whatever they're going to do, whether it's attempt to kill somebody or have an accidental car crash or something, that's what tends to happen. But I will say, I don't know whether, do you have any information on the WikiLeaks situation?
Nothing, just what I read, what's in the newspapers. I don't have that much detail. I'm done like you. I'm fully familiar with disinformation programs. As a matter of fact, if you go on the internet, you'll see where I'm a victim of extensive disinformation. For example, I've been accused of marrying Antoine LaVey's widow, and Antoine LaVey was founded the Church of Satan. I've been accused of all kinds of nasty things. I've being kicked out of the FBI for practicing satanic ceremony in the federal building. And this is all put on the internet by government disinformation specialists to discredit me, so that people like you would not call on me, and get the word out.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I was going to say to our listeners, that there is a lot of disinformation out there to discredit you on the internet. So I would say to our listeners, just don't even go there. This is their MO. This is how they try and discredit people, by putting disinformation out there on the internet. I've seen enough of your footage and what you talked about, and the heartache of Linda when she had her kids, when she found out her kids were being abused, and you were helping Linda to sort out, the situation. I mean, there's no way, that you're going to have, your heart is in the right place and you are helping this lady. These people must not think that we don't have any brains, that we can't logically look at what you're doing and actually see that, what you're doing is trying to help this woman. You know, and even, I mean, at one time I know you said sometimes your phones are tapped or your phones have been tapped. And I'd kind of say for the people who are kind of tapping the phone and listening to the conversations, they must have morals. They must have family. They must be questioning the job they're doing. You know, for the people they're doing it for. They have to question that and say, you know, have a bit of cop on. You know, have a bit of, you know, common sense. That they're working for people that just don't have any morals, don't have any empathy, and just wake up to what's going on.
But I mean, thanks to mind control, maybe these people, they do have morals, but maybe they're under the same mind control programs as the likes of MK Ultra, so maybe they don't actually, maybe they can't care. Maybe they would ordinarily, but thanks to mind control, they can't care. Yeah.
Well, there's one thing I want you to talk about, Ted, and I found your lecture on Pawns in the Game, the book. You read out a list of information as to the Illuminati wanting society to go down a certain route, and there's a lot of things on there, and one of them was make kids more violent, make things more violent, movies, computer games, all these things, guns that are available, make kids more violent. And you know, I can see that because myself and Steve are family men. And we can see that with our kids that, you know, they want to play computer games that are rated 18 and they're only young, and we're saying, no, you're not getting the game. So what I've done is, before you go into Pawns in the Game, I'll just say to our listeners, if you go into, we've set up a web page for you on the OYM Ireland website. So if you go into Ted's web page on OYM, Ted's information's on there, Ted's website is on there, but also there's a link to the book Pawns in the Game, and I recommend you go and have a read of that. But Ted, if you want to go into, talk to us about Pawns in the Game and tell us all about how you came across that and what was involved and what you found out in the book.
Yes, I was given a lecture back in the early 1990s, I believe it was, in Las Vegas, Nevada. And after the lecture, I stepped off the podium. In fact, during the lecture, I talked about the McDonald Case. And a man walked up to me with a book called Pawns in the Game, and he said, read this is what it's all about. And I don't know who that man was, but I'm forever thankful to him because it was a book written by William Guy Carr, a retired lieutenant commander in the Canadian Navy. And he couldn't understand why we had to have all these wars and why we had so many problems in the world. So he started researching it. And he learned, as a matter of fact, Pawns in the Game is available through, I'd be glad to send you a copy. It's reasonable. It's like $15, US dollars. But anyway, on page 26, it's announced and that the Rothschild family had commissioned a fellow named Adam Weishoff, a defunct priest, Catholic priest, to come up with a plan, a master plan to take over the world. Now, this is May the 1st, 1776, when Weishoff announced the 25 goals to take over the world. And I'll go over with you very briefly the 25 goals, because if you go into detail, it'll take another 2 hours. But these are the rules that he set forth. Rule by force. Preach liberalism. Bring about class wars. Any and all means to reach their goal. Their plans must be kept secret until the last minute. Use mob psychology. Corrupt the youth through sex and drugs and alcohol. Now, that's a foregone conclusion. You can see that before your very eyes, of course.
That's happening, yeah.
Beg your pardon?
That's happening. That's definitely happening.
Definitely happening. Seize property by any means. Accumulate wealth. Advocate war. And at the peace table, direct the conference so neither side wins. And we saw that World War II. Elect their own candidates and advisors to the candidates. Control the press. I'll give you an example of controlling the press. On February the 9th, 1917, Congressman Galloway, on the floor of the U.S. Congress, announced that in March 1915, the J.P. Morgan interests had bought 29 of America's leading newspapers and inserted their own editors in order to control the press. So that was 1950. You can imagine the control they have now. That's why we don't get the full story, the truth, from the mainstream media here in the United States, and I'm sure it's true in England. So that's controlling the press. The other goal, number 13, is to have their agentures appear at the scene of a tragedy, arrange for prosecution, and to appear as heroes. Well, they've done that with the terrorist movement, international terrorist movement. I can tell you a lot about that one, too, by the way. 14th one was established depression and financial panics, enforce unemployment and hunger. 15th, infiltrate Freemasonry to take advantage of secrecy within an organization. Use philanthropy as a cloak to hide their subversive goals. Number 16, train the leaders to use fancy, high-sounding phrases, make lavish promises to the masses. Promises can be undone afterwards. 17, advocate revolution to bring about the population to a speedy subjection. 18, use secret agents as saboteurs. Well, we know that's taking place. 19, establish wide world government through huge monopolies and economic control. 20, high taxes and unfair competition to bring about economic ruin of the population, control raw materials, organize agitation among the workers, make sure any financial gains in increased wages will not be of any benefit to them. 21, build up armaments, infiltrate law enforcement and the military. Definitely seen that infiltration of law enforcement and the military in the United States. 22, members of the world government will be appointed by a dictator. 23, infiltrate all classes and levels of security with emphasis on corrupting and controlling the youth. Teach them theories and principles known to be false. And then arbitration of the law. So basically that was what was announced. Now, in addition to that, here in this United States of America, there are executive orders in place, and the executive orders were designed for the president to give orders to his departmental heads. But it's been abused, and the presidents are now using them directing orders to the public. For example, there's a whole series of executive orders, and these are orders that the president puts down, which is tantamount to a dictatorship. And these are just a few of the executive orders. Take over all communications, media, take over all electric power, petroleum, gas, fuel, minerals, take over all food resources and farms, take over all means of transportation, control highways and seaports, draft all citizens into workforces under government supervision, slave labor in other words, take over all health, welfare, and educational functions, empower the post office postmaster general to register all citizens nationwide, take over all airports and aircraft, take over housing and finance authorities and housing designated as unsafe, establish new locations for population, build new housing with public funds, take over all railroads, inland waterways, and public storage facilities, and designate responsibility of the Office of Emergency Planning, giving the authorization to put the above orders into effect in times of increased international tension or economic crisis, anytime they want to. And then comes the big one, Executive Order 11490. All of the above orders are immediately activated. Now, in 1963, our President John F. Kennedy at Columbia University gave a lecture, and in the lecture he said it perfectly. He said the high office of the president has been used to foment a plot to destroy America's freedom, and before I leave this office, I must inform the citizens of their plight. And then 10 days later, Jack Kennedy was assassinated, murdered, and it was covered up. I happen to have personal knowledge of the assassination and the cover-up. By the way, I might mention also, and I'm not crying because if I had to do all over again, because of my criticism of the federal government and of the FBI, I've been kicked out of the Society of Former Special Agents of the FBI. I filed a request under the Freedom of Information Act in 2005. I still have not received my records or any reports on it. It's absolutely no cooperation at all, and so be it. But I'm I'm not concerned. I'm not complaining. Okay.
Well, this is the, you know, it's an example of you standing up to the system and coming out, and we are getting more and more people like that who, you know, they might have a choice. They could easily sit back, know about what's going on, and not do anything about it. But we do have a few people that have actually come out and put their reputation on the line, even over here in Ireland, to actually talk about what's going on. And what you're saying in America, I mean, we're seeing it over here. You've probably heard about Ireland. I don't know whether you heard about the IMF coming in and the issues that we're having in Ireland and over in Europe, Portugal, Spain, Greece. And this is part and parcel of their MO and how they operate, what's happening. And I think Tunisia, the president had to leave the country, and I think in Algeria it's getting to the stage where the price of the likes of salt and sugar and basic commodities that you need, it's getting way beyond, you know, it's getting too expensive to buy. And we were told about this, and we were aware about this, about how the Illuminati operating and the global elite are operating. And even Rockefeller was over here, Ted. Rockefeller came over here and he was fraternizing with our president, Mary McAleese, and what happened was, lucky enough, the hotel that he went into, two of the guys from a newspaper over here, which is the Sovereign Independent, actually had the chance to go up to Rockefeller and give him a copy of the paper and say to him that he's not going to get his new world order. And I think the scale of the amount of people waking up to the global elite and what their plans are is on a daily basis. More and more people are beginning to wake up. But I'll just say to people there, to our listeners, that the book, what's it called again? Sorry.
Will be Pawns in the Game.
Pawns in the Game. Sorry, I had a bit of a memory blank there. Pawns in the Game. If you go to Ted's webpage on OYM Ireland, there's a link to the book Pawns in the Game, and you can download and read all the things that Ted has just read out about the demise of society based on the Illuminati. Ted, where do you see things are at the moment? I mean, we're going to fast forward kind of all the bits that you've done through the 80s and 90s and everything else. What are you working on now, and where do you see the global elite and Illuminati? What have you heard through your contacts of what's happening? Are they gaining ground, or are they beginning to lose ground, do you think?
Well, what's happened is the whole thing is mind-boggling. I've been described as a kook, conspiracy theorist, extremist speaker, and all kinds of crazy things. But I deal with facts. I deal with the truth. And the thing that's kind of frightening is there's an Echelon program that records all telephone calls in America. That's out of Fort Meade, Maryland. There is a Conover program that can turn on your computer and download your computer. They can monitor it. That's by NSA. There's a Tempest program up to 1/4. They can sit in the car up to 1/4 mile away and tell what you have on your computer screen. They can manipulate your computer and so forth. And also, there are 16,000 guillotines that have been brought into this country from Japan. There are 500,000 caskets that will hold 40 bodies outside of in the country in Georgia. There are 1,000 internment camps in the United States. There are United Nations troops in the United States. In fact, I think it's Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico. It's completely by the German Air Force. And one of my sources said that she dated one of the German airmen deliberately to find out what they were doing there. And he said that when the revolution starts, we're going to strafe your streets. There are sensors that have been planted on the major highways in America. They are extending the runways in small airports. For example, in Beatrice, Nebraska, they have an airport runway. It doesn't service any commercial airplanes. It's only for private planes, little paper cuts and all that. Yeah, the runway is a mile long, and they're extending that runway. We have chemical trails. I mean, death dumps that are taking place. They're dropping poison on us. And one of the two locations I'm aware of where it's taking place is the Air National Guard, Lincoln, Nebraska, and Fort Sill, Oklahoma. And I personally took pictures of 4 airplanes on the tarpaulin at the Air National Guard in Lincoln, Nebraska. They were huge, huge airplanes like bombers with no identification on them. So that's what we're looking at now. And I'm concerned. Now, of course, the terrorist movement's an altogether another topic. The terrorist movement is designed. We don't have probably time today to go into a lot of detail on it, but it's designed to set up the Homeland Security and to pass the Patriot Act, and the Patriot Act took away our freedom of speech, the right to be secure in your home, deprived us of life, liberty, or property without due process. They deprived us of, in the Patriot Act, the right to a speedy trial. And 8th Amendment to the Constitution, no cruel and unusual punishment. The 13th Amendment, punishment without conviction. Those are the Constitution that rights, the amendments to the Constitution that have been taken away by 262 Republicans and 77 Democrats. They killed the Bill of Rights, which is, basically the rights of the people. And now going, if I don't know how much time we have, but the not Oklahoma City, but the World Trade Center car bombing in February 26, 1993. The FBI had an informant among the terrorists. Salam was his name, a former Egyptian army officer, 43 years old. And he was commissioned by the terrorists to put the bomb together. He went to his FBI superiors. He said, "We're going to use a dummy bomb, right?" And they said, "No, we're going to use a real bomb." So the FBI not only knew in advance of the World Trade Center car bombing in 1993, they furnished the ingredients for the bomb. Fast forward to Oklahoma City. It was an inside job. There's absolutely no question about it. I personally made 2 trips to Oklahoma City out of my retirement money. By the way, I used my retirement money to expose this corruption. And I learned that the so-called fertilizer bomb in the truck was not a fertilizer bomb. It was a barometric bomb, a highly powerful bomb called electrohydrodynamic gaseous fuel device. And it blew away half the building. Fertilizer bomb barely blew up a stump in the backyard. And I obtained the contract number of that bomb, and from a reliable source, Science Magazine. I sent it to the Picatinny Arsenal in New Jersey and asked for a copy of the contract, which is public information. They came back and said there's no such contract. So that's just an example. And also, I have the news broadcast, TV news broadcast, the afternoon of the Oklahoma City bombing, and there were 5 news stations who said that they were taking bombs out. These were unconventional bombs. And one of them says, they're removing bombs from the building. We're going to find out who's behind this now because one of them has the U.S. Army stencil on it. So that was Oklahoma City. And then we had, of course, 911, and as soon as 911 occurred, and by the way, one of my sources, a CIA source, had advanced information about the terrorist activity in this country, knowledge of the leader of the terrorist movement, who was an electronic engineer in Patterson, New Jersey. And my source had this information and gave it to the FBI on March the 20th, 6 months prior to September 11th, and the FBI ignored it. The FBI who received this information was an FBI agent named Keith Kutry, and I put a report out on this. All this information I'm telling you today, folks, is on the CD. It's 6,500 pages, 52 reports. And what I'm saying is documented. Well, so now, what's the reason for the terrorist movement? I mentioned a few moments ago it was to take away many of our constitutional rights and civil liberties. And they have done just that. And that's the story.
This mass exodus, or I've noticed on the internet that there seems to be a lot of people who want to leave the States because they're saying it's getting to be like a police state now over there with all the new laws. I mean, how bad is that over there now? You've just gone through a list of your rights being taken away. But how bad is it on a day-to-day basis now?
What, sir?
How bad is the situation now? Because on the internet, there seems to be a lot of people who want to leave America because they're saying that it's turning into a police state. How bad is it on a day-to-day basis? How do you see this on a day-to-day basis?
No, you don't see it on a day-to-day basis, but you can see it if you study what I presented on your radio show today. People would listen to that, but you don't see it. It's just pretty well hidden.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But it's there. It's there. It's behind the closed door.
Mm.
And one of my associates just passed me a note, and this is what the note says. All these problems basically begin with the parents giving bad teachings and passing them through the generation to their children. There are 2 fabulous books that give parents guidance and provide guidance for married couples to create a strong home for the inside that can withhold all these negative influences. It's Garden of Peace is for men to read, and Women's Wisdom is for women to read. These books sell for $19.50 each, or $35 for both. You can send a check or money order to my address. It's on the internet. Now, these books are advertised on the internet also. So it's a very good point to make that my associate just gave you this note. But also my DVDs and my CDs and what have you are all available. I just finished a DVD about Satanism. And the Satanism, Satanic movement, it's all part of the Satanic movement. It's the spiritual war we're into, folks. Spiritual war.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on that. It's not just the physical, it's the spiritual. And one of the things I did kind of look into, because, the Satanism and the child abuse is, it's really, really bad. And I wanted to understand, or try and understand, not just the physical, but why these people are abusing kids, why this is happening. And I kind of have my own kind of idea why this is happening, and it's kind of from an energetic point of view, and it's just based on other research that I've done. Do you have any theories, or do you have any factual information on why you feel these people are doing this?
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, this is a part of the Satanic movement. Aleister Crowley says that children should be exposed to sex as soon as they're born, and it's part of the degenerate position that they are taking, the Satanists are taking. These people have infiltrated virtually every level of society the Satanists have, and I estimate it's about 1.5% of the population in the United States. And the reason I estimate that is because one of my sources, confidential sources in the South Bay of Los Angeles, population 200,000, claimed that there's about 3,000 Satanists there. This was years ago, and I came up with this information. In Lincoln, Nebraska, another source said there's about 3,000 Satanists in Lincoln, Nebraska, population 200,000. And in Iowa City, Iowa, another completely different source, third source, told me that there's about 1,500 practicing Satanists in Iowa City, Iowa, a town of about 100,000 at the time. 100,000. No. Anyway, it was 100,000, and Lincoln was 200,000. The other two were 200,000. So if you project that figure, it's about 1.5% of the population, which is quite a few million people. I went into a store in Manhattan Beach here back several years ago, and I purchased something, and the fellow gave me a receipt with the star, the satanic emblem on it. By the way, on that McMartin case, we found a dish in the sand, buried about 6 inches under the surface, that had the satanic symbol on it. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, that's the pentagram you're talking about, is it?
Yeah. And then there were a whole series of, right about that same time, there were a whole series of preschools where people came forward and said that they were involved in abusing children. Well, what's better approach to change society, to bring, to influence future adults, than to grab when they're kids? Adolf Hitler did this very thing. Grab them when they're kids and when they're young, when they're can be influenced, and indoctrinate them then. And they were doing it in these preschools across the country. And one of the ways they documented is through the sex. And then, for example, one of the mothers told me on the McMartin case that she and her husband worked, and they dropped the little daughter off at the school, and they came into the little girl's house when the parents were gone, got the kitty cat, little baby kitten, took it back to the McMartin school, and sacrificed it in front of the little girl, and said that she told her mother they were going to do this to her mother and father and her brother. And those are the tactics that they use. This is rampant. It's rampant, underground rampant. And that's why, of course, I'm being criticized, disinformation, and what have you. But, be that as it may, it's kind of interesting also because I've had like 18, 20 people planted on me.
Yeah.
And try to find out what I'm doing and all that sort of thing. So I have to be very careful making new friends.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you have to be careful. I think the alternative media have to be very careful who comes on board or who's involved, because, they're going to try and get involved. They're trying to. They'll probably try and get people to infiltrate. I know there's probably some infiltration that's been going on in certain other areas, and we all have to be careful. I think that's a given. My understanding of why these people are abusing the kids, it's not just for the gratification. It's not just the abuse. It's not that they're just sick. And I don't know how you feel about this, Ted, but this is kind of, one of the things I was looking into. I mean, we talk about the spiritual war. It's not just the physical. And one of the things I come across out of a few other bits and pieces of research was the interview by Credo Mutwa, which is an Indian Zulu warrior that one of the people in the UK interviewed. There was a 6-hour interview. It's actually on the internet, I believe, and you can buy the videotape or buy the DVD. And one of the questions was, why are these people so into abusing kids? And what's the scenario? And there's another chap in America who was actually involved in the Illuminati and actually got out of it. And he said what was the big secret that you don't talk about? And the big secret was child abuse. And this is open to people doing the research and finding out, but basically, when a child under the age of 10 is abused, a lot of people will look at the child and go, God, they look older than their years because they've been abused. And apparently it's all down to energy. You hear people talking about when new kids are born and go, oh, do you have all that lovely healthy energy, and they're so new and fresh and all that energy. Well, this is what apparently the Satanists are big into. They understand this energy. And so apart from the abuse and getting hold of that energy, it's the terror that the child feels. Some of these Satanists drink blood. And whatever the effect is with the endorphins, when a child is actually terrified and scared, there's a chemical change in the blood. And it's that chemical change that they get the high from, that they want. But also, the abuse has got to do with the energy. The energy from the child. And I don't know whether you come across that, Ted.
Oh yeah, definitely. The adrenaline. Well, that's in the human sacrifices by the Satanists, they torture right up to the moment of death, and then they drink the blood because the blood is enriched with I guess endorphins and it's adrenaline rush and what have you, and that's the reason they drink the blood. I have a whole chapter, a whole report on the satanic ceremonies in the United States today. Actually worldwide, I should say. And, one of the issues here also is the missing children. And the satanic culture involved in that. And there is a rogue element within the CIA that's involved in missing children and actually involved in kidnapping them. And I have good documentation on this. But do we have time to go into that or what?
Yeah, go ahead. If you shoot away, Ted, yeah?
I don't know how much time you're going to give me on the air, but anyway, according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children is an adjunct to the U.S. Department of Justice. And they claim on their website that there are 91 Americans disappear every hour in America. 85 to 90% are children. So that's a total of more than 700,000 disappeared in the United States. As a matter of fact, as early as July 1982, the Reader's Digest did an article of missing 100,000 children a year. I mean, that's atrocious. Absolutely atrocious.
Are these kids that are sorry, Ted, are these kids that are on the street, or just kids belong to parents and families?
Well, no, a high percentage of them are parental abduction. However, there's also a very high percentage who are actually children who are missing with the parent, without the parents' involvement at all. And I charted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has put out pictures of children who are missing, and I happen to have 94 copies of these pictures, and I charted the months that they were missing. And of the 94 cases, 18 were missing in June, 15 in October, and 14 in December, for a total of 47 for 3 months, the same total as the other 9 months. So then what I did is I went to the Satanic calendar where they have human sacrifices. And in June the 21st is summer solstice, a human sacrifice. October 31st is Halloween, a human sacrifice, calls for a human sacrifice. December 21st is the winter solstice, calls for a human sacrifice. So, there's a pattern there. And I have taken my report. I have a report called The Finders, which is a report about the CIA operation involving kidnapping children. And I've given it to the FBI on half a dozen occasions, and I have been completely ignored. So for these 3 months, the amount of children, number of children disappeared are the same as for the other 9 months. And as of the fall of 2005, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, in 25 years, had located 139 children with a $49 million budget. 139 children in 25 years. That was on their card, one of their cards that they put out. So it's a huge cover-up. Now, I worked another case in the 1980s, Nebraska Franklin cover-up, and that was a case where they were taking children out of Boys Town, orphanages, private homes, foster homes, and so forth, and driving them from Omaha, Nebraska, which is in the central United States, to Sioux City, Iowa, 184 miles away, placing them on private jets and flying them to Washington, D.C. for sex orgies with congressmen, senators, dignitaries, and what have you. Okay, now why would they do this? They do this so they take pictures of them and these congressmen, senators in compromising positions with the children. They do this so they can blackmail them and tell them how to vote. And that's why we have laws like the Patriot Act passed, which are absolutely idiotic, taking away our constitutional rights and civil liberties, because if they don't vote that way, then they are obviously going to be exposed in more than one way, if I may say. But this is another example of it. This also, the kids involved in this case, in the Nebraska case, also talked about adults in robes, chanting, candles, carrying candles, and sacrificing humans. So it's a national movement, and nobody in a position of authority is doing anything about it.
Do these people not understand? Do they not kind of have a bit of common sense to go, well, you know, if they're going to take photos of me, it's obviously they're going to use it for blackmail. I mean, whatever your perversion is, or whatever the perversion is these guys have, surely they have some kind of an intellect and common sense to say, well, I'm not going to go down that road because I don't want to be held, I don't want to be used and manipulated. Do they not see it that way, or am I just being too kind of logical?
Well, they take pictures of them secretly without them knowing it.
Oh, okay. So you have the sort of setup, basically, what you're saying.
It's blackmail.
Yeah.
It's blackmail. And I have an interview that I conducted with the so-called official photographer of the group, Rusty Nelson. And anyway, he told me, he said that what he did was he would have a roll of film for the people that were involved in this, and then he had his own roll of film secretly, and he took pictures with both of them, his own and the other, without him knowing that, for his insurance policy. Now, Rusty's alive today because he's hidden those pictures around the country. And these pictures were, if I gave you the names of the people involved that he took pictures of, it would shock you. It goes right up to the White House, okay?
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I did watch the video of Kathy O'Brien, Transformation of America. I don't know whether you've seen that, Ted.
No, I know all about Kathy, yeah. I know full well.
Yeah.
I lectured at the same time with Kathy, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I watch Kathy O'Brien's, because Kathy O'Brien, for people who don't know her, was a sex slave. And it started from when she was a baby. She was abused from a baby by her father. And then her father was caught abusing her, and then the whoever, you know, arrested them said, well, listen, we'll let you off if you let us carry on, because it's got to do with the psychological trauma and being able to compartmentalize her brain and give her multiple personalities and call on that personality when they need it. And as you say, if you get the kids at an early age and start programming them, they're easier to control and manipulate.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, that's all part of the master. That's why that's why they're going after the children in the preschools.
Right. Yeah.
That's the parents' permission.
And if anybody,
absolutely.
Yeah, if anybody wants to go to Google and type in Kathy O'Brien, Transformation of America, we recommend that you go and watch that, because that's very interesting, and what she went through was unbelievable, and it's worthwhile seeing it. But again, one of the things I'd say as well is, Ted, you have loads of you've got loads of seminars on the internet as well. The one I seen was the one on Google, on YouTube, Satanism and CIA, but I know you have a lot more, and I'd recommend our listeners going to that. One of the things that you mentioned there, just for people who actually don't know from an occult point of view, is Aleister Crowley was born in the late 1800s, and he was a full-time occultist. And this chap was a member of the Golden Dawn, which was an extreme satanic cult group, and he was actually wining and dining with royalty and rich people in the early 1900s. And one of his famous quotes was that he wanted to dance with the devil. This guy was a nasty piece of work, if you want to put it that way, and he has various books out there, and he talks about energy and how you manipulate it and what to do, and there's still a lot of cults out there who probably still go by his teachings. You know, I'm sure there's people like, you mentioned Alistair Levine, the Church of Satan, that's over in the States. And he's well known as well as a full-time occultist. And a lot of people, you know, throughout our daily lives, and, you know, doing the shopping and, you know, going to work and all that, a lot of people are not exposed to this. And they'd probably say to you, Ted, because of, you know, you've been involved in so much, and for the person on the street who comes up to you and ask you about this, I always say to people, you know, they always put their own morals on these people. and they say, oh no, I don't believe that they do that. And they forget that what they wouldn't do doesn't mean that that other person wouldn't do. So if somebody came up to you, say somebody came up to you, Ted, and they seen your article and they said, oh, I can't really believe that happens. What do you normally say to them?
Well, I just tell them to check my documentation.
Yeah.
As I said, I had this CD with 6,500 pages of documentation. It's nothing but documentation, proving that the information that I gave you today is true. It's not false. It's not fabricated. It's true. Just get the CD and review it.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do.
And what would be the signs? As I'd say, I'd call you really an expert now in this because you've been involved in it for so long. What are the signs that you need to watch out for SRA? SRA is the term used, Satanic Ritual Abuse. What are the signs that people would need to watch out for if they were concerned about it?
Well, the main thing is to watch out for your children. See what the reaction of your children have in different situations. For example, if a child is a young child is involved in playing with his or her genitals, or talks about sex at the age of 2, 3, 4, 5 years of age, that's a big sign that they've been exposed to this, because the parents certainly aren't going to talk to them about that. That's the main sign that I see. And then other signs would be physical signs, of course, like the McMartin case. A little boy came home and had blood in his diapers. I mean, if you send your kid to a preschool and he comes home with blood in his diapers, you better check him out for sure. And you see, what they do is they intimidate the kids so they won't talk.
Yeah.
As I said about taking the child's kitty cat and cutting it up and saying they're going to do that to the mother if she talked. But these are unusual. These are the things that you usually have to look for.
And that's incredible. And as you say, the tunnels that you found underneath that school, and you find in pentagrams. And I know, as I say, there's people that was, disinformation people putting information out there about you, trying to say that you this, that, and the other. I mean, I think we can pretty much put it to bed that what you've done and your documentation and your research, is, for me anyway, it was 100%. And anybody that does come across any disinformation, it's exactly what it is. It's not real. It's false. It's just people trying to discredit you and what you've done and all the work that you've done. Again, it's all part of the big cover-up, Ted, what we'll do is we'll wrap it up now for you, because we know you're on the cell phone there, and you probably have limited battery life, and there's obviously stuff that we're going to go through in the show as well. So what we'll just say, we'll say good night to you for now, and we really appreciate you being on the show and telling us all about what's going on. It's fantastic. I mean, it's worrying, but it's fantastic getting the information out there and getting it out to our listeners. Would you come back on the show maybe in a couple of months' time, or 3 months' time, whatever, and give us an update on what you're working on?
Sure, be glad to. I got some other cases that you'll find very interesting. In closing, I might mention this, if I have a few minutes.
Yeah, go ahead.
That in the McMartin case, the kid said the entrance to the tunnels under the school was outside the wall of the classroom number 4. So we took a backhoe and went down about 12, 14 feet, and here was an outline of the tunnel, and you could tell it from the difference in the soil that filled in, where the some of them filled in versus the natural soil. But sticking out about a foot and a half under the foundation, half in and half under the foundation, was a plastic bag. And this plastic bag was a Disney sandwich bag, dated 1982. So I think the tunnels were, although the school was built in 1966 by the way, it was, I think the tunnels were filled in 1982, and that's when the case broke. And that's when this plastic sandwich bag, obviously, the wind probably blew it in there when they were filling in the tunnels, and so I think God had a little something to do with that too.
And I remember you saying that I think one of the investigators who wasn't experienced in this field tried to discredit you, saying that, you possibly put that in as a plant.
Oh, yeah, no, Ken Lanning, who's involved with the behavioral science unit of the FBI, claims that I planted that there, and I found it in a garbage bag, and I planted it there. Well, now, where am I? In 1991 is when we found the tunnels. Where am I going to find a sandwich bag from Disney dated 1982 in 1991, huh?
Yeah,
okay, you tell me the answer to that, and
that's
I think Houdini might have.
That's right. It's farcical, really. You know, they really are clutching at straws there when they're saying stuff like that. You know, it's unbelievable information there, Ted. Again, we really appreciate you coming on the show and telling us all about this, and we'd love to have you back on again to get an update on any of the cases that you're working on, any information that you know, you can tell us on what's going on, because we need to get the information out here, not just in the US, but obviously in Europe, in Ireland, because there's no doubt that bit of music there.
Sorry. No, we're just checking out Ted's web address there, just to make sure that we can give it out to people at the end of the show. So just checking out that it was actually live and working, and didn't realise Ted had music on the website.
Yeah, Ted's website, as soon as you load it up, actually plays music. I noticed that the other day. But yeah, Ted, we'd just like to say thanks a lot for coming on the show. Much appreciated. We know what's going over here. It's going on in Ireland and Europe. We don't know to what extent. We don't have that kind of information. But I'm sure there's people out there who, you know, could be whistleblowers, could be involved in it. And we obviously, you know, if they do give us the information that has to be researched, we can't just take their word for it. But again, thank you for coming on, and I'll just say good night to you for now, and I'm sure Steve will say the same.
Yeah, Ted, you are a mine of information. I do urge anyone who wants to maybe see more proof of what you've been saying, that they should pop along to tedgunderson.net. And as Alan did say earlier, anyone who's viewing OYM Ireland, they can just pop along to the Ted Gunderson page, and there is some information there about yourself, about various things that you are have worked on, and there are a couple of links there, one of which is to your website, and definitely well worth checking out, because I mean, Ted, anyone who knows your work knows that you don't do things by half, and that everything is well researched and well put together. So I mean, I applaud you for that, and I personally like to thank you for coming on the show. It's just been a pleasure just to actually sit here and listen to what you have to say. It is a pleasure there. So thanks, Ted.
Brilliant. Ted,
thank you, sir. Be sure to check my website for the wellness books. There's a link to those that help the men and the women in their relationship.
We will indeed. Ted, just stay with us there for a minute. We're just going to go to a bit of music, but just stay with us there for a minute, okay? Okay, we're just going to go to a bit of music, and we'll catch you on the far side. There you go, a bit of Elvis Costello for Ted Gunderson watching The Detective, as I'm sure they were doing. That was fantastic information, Steve, wasn't it, with Ted?
Mind-blowing. I mean, as I did say at the end, and I know I didn't say too much throughout the interview, but I mean, what I said at the end, I stand by. I mean, anyone who doesn't know Ted, go to his website, go to YouTube, check out his videos. I mean, the guy has so much information. It's all well documented. It's factual. The guy he does his homework. I mean, some of the stuff that you and I have both seen on some of his work, I mean, it would make your skin crawl. I mean, especially when you're talking about the likes of the child abuse. I mean, it's horrible. The stuff that man has uncovered. Well,
the one I seen originally was Ted Gunderson and Satanism and the CIA, and the girl who was with him at the seminar gets up and talks about what she's seen and what she's heard has happened to kids, and you would not believe it. Her own kids, what her own kids were doing after being abused, and what's happened to other kids. I mean, it's psycho. It really is psycho time, you know. But listen, we didn't get to start the show on because we wanted to get Ted on. We knew he was on a cell phone, and at the moment with the way his battery is, it's probably burning his hand, you know.
And frying his brain.
So we're going to go through. We're not even bothered to go through the communications channels. You probably know by now. No point. But there are a few things that we need to say before we finish up in the show anyway. So we will go through them. The number one being, we have a Facebook page.
Yay!
Yay! So, go along.
We'll have a little round of applause there.
Yeah, okay. Well, you can find it there. Look, we have a Facebook page. Thank you. Okay. Basically, go to Facebook, type in Open Your Mind, and you'll come across the Facebook page. It's in its infancy at the moment. It's nothing fantastic, but by all means, pop along and become our friend. And if there's anything you want to hear, you want to say, you want to discuss, you like, you don't like, let us know. Give us some feedback, because we like good and bad, because we like to know that we're doing things good. Clap, clap, yeah. Yeah, of course, clap, clap.
Thank you, Special K.
Thank you, Special K. We're not talking about a cereal breakfast here. So, do you want to go start off with number one?
Okay, number one, donations PC laptop. We're still harping on about this purely because the one that we have here, it's so old, it's in black and white, and there's cobwebs on it. So if anyone has an old PC or a laptop that's lying around doing nothing, we can put it to use without any shadow of a doubt. It will definitely come in useful to what we're doing.
Excellent. Next thing on the agenda, the Truth Agenda by the Sovereign Independent is on next weekend. The one in Cork is on Thursday, the 20th, and the one on Saturday, which is the one myself and Steve will be at as well, is on Saturday. So don't forget, book your tickets, sovereignindependent.ie or 111 Scan. You can book them online, and that keeps you, make sure that you have a seat, because I can tell that it's probably going to be booked out.
Well, you're going to need a seat because it's on from 9 a.m. till 8 p.m.
Too right. It's a long day, but there's loads of information to go through. Yeah, and also the next day, if you want to read that one out, Steve.
The next day?
Yeah, National Health Federation.
Okay, where am I on my list? National Health Federation. Get the F out. Get the fluoride out campaign on the 23rd. No location yet, and for more information you will need to contact Alan at tiernasaur.com.
Yeah, they're going to work on getting a location. It's the day after the Truth Agenda, so you can find the information out on tiernasaur.com. We also got an email in from a chap called Kieran, and Kieran runs a website, I believe, or involved with a website called www.fluoridefreewater.ie. So if you're, obviously we're interested in getting the fluoride out of water, if you want to pop along and have a look at that website.
I actually checked it out earlier. Sorry, I checked it out earlier actually. And he actually has a chart of all the European countries and the level of fluoride that's actually in the drinking water. And what was it? Ireland 71%, UK 10%, Spain 3%, and all the rest of the European countries 0%.
Wow!
So we are the highest level of fluoridation in the drinking water in Europe.
Yeah, well, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to have somebody. Well, Bernadette Bowen's going to be on the 30th.
Yeah.
We'll probably be talking about that anyway. But I did say to Kieran that if he wants to come on the show and talk about the fluoride in the water, his background and his experience, he'll let us know.
Well, that's what I mean. If he has any more information that we can help get out there. I mean, it's all about getting the information out. So I mean, yeah, if Kieran wants to come on,
yeah,
so I'm sure he can. He may see things from a different angle.
Yeah, well, it's always good to get the information out there. How was your week anyway?
It was all right.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, as you know, we've been doing a lot of running up and down to Dublin with the daughter. Anyone, well, I'm not saying I give out a lot of personal information, but anyone that might know me, my daughter's been doing a play up in the Helix, so we've been running up and down to Dublin over the past couple of months with her. Came to an end last night, so there was tears.
Yay!
Yeah, it came to an end, so no more running up and down. We're going to save on the petrol now. But yeah, other than that, now the week's been it's been a busy week in work. The old 9 to 5 grind.
Okay. Well, just a few things from last week's show. We had a fantastic response from David Wilcock on the show. Now, somebody did kind of say, did I call him Wilcox or Wilcock? And it's David Wilcox, so I apologise if somebody gets upset because I pronounced his name wrong. But it was on the show last week, and we talked about something called the Alternative 3. Now, the videos are now available on OYMIreland.com. The YouTube videos. If you go to the video section of OYMIreland.com, you'll see Alternative 3 down there, and also 2 other videos by a chap called William Cooper. So have a look at them and make up your own mind. That's all I'll say. Make up your own mind and see what you think. Then there was a correction. There's another radio station called the Irish Side of the Moon, and I think last week I called them the Dark Side of the Moon, which is Pink Floyd. So sorry about that. It's Irish Side of the Moon. The other thing on the list is Anthony J. Hilder, who we had in the show just before Christmas, is still looking for chemtrail information. So if anybody has the phone with them and there's a camera on the phone and you see a chemtrail, now there's a difference between a chemtrail and a contrail, okay? A contrail is just directly after the plane and dissipates very quickly. But a chemtrail will stay in the air even after the aircraft is gone, okay? So if you have a camera, take a shot of if you think it's a chemtrail, take a shot of it and email it into us and we'll pass it on to Anthony. Anthony wants to keep track of all the chemtrails that are going on. So if you can do that, that'll be fantastic. And, well, what can I say about the government and Brian Cowan?
Well, before you say anything about the government and Brian Cowan, can you give us the L Facebook address? Because Special K has just said she's been trying to find us frantically on Facebook and she can't.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll do one even better. If you go to OYMIreland.com and down the bottom of the page it says, see us on Facebook, click on the link there and it should bring you straight to Facebook. And if it doesn't, then you can have a moan at us and we'll go and try and sort it out. But I'm pretty sure it'll bring you straight to Facebook, our Facebook page. I think you might need to be logged in on Facebook, I'm not too sure. But if you can't get to it, now we have set the Facebook page so anyone can view it. You don't have to be logged in. But if it doesn't work, let us know and then we'll check it out. Yeah, Brian Cowan. I was watching a program last night called The Panel, which I find very interesting. It's humour, it's laughter, and they really take the pee out of the government, which is what I really like.
Yeah.
And there was a senator who came on from the Senate, and he actually said, and fair play to him, he said, our government system is rotten to the core, and he said that it's cronyism. It's complete cronyism in the government. So, he was dead straight. He was saying what he's saying. And I have to agree with him. Now, he's an independent Senate, and he said, I'm not invited to any of the big parties because I speak my mind. Surprise, surprise, the golden circle,
So he said this live on TV?
He said it live on TV last night, yeah.
Keep an eye on him, because just in case he meets an untimely accident.
Exactly, yeah. And so if anybody hasn't seen The Panel, I do believe they do repeat it, I think. So seeing him talking about it and actually saying it's cronyism, and they're all taking care of their friends and friends of friends, and they're all hiring their own friends, and you get guys who have directorships of 73 companies. It's unbelievable.
So a bit of honesty.
Honesty for a change. I can't understand why Brian Cowan doesn't get the hint.
Would that be that guy you're talking about? Would it have been Shane Ross?
That possibly could have been him.
Yeah. Thank you, POC, our avid weekly listener.
Yeah, I reckon that sounds right. All right, that's his name, and he was completely honest, and he just said what he's seen. So I can't complain. Now, I thought what we do as well is the general election's going to be coming up. We talked about Sinn Féin last week.
Yeah.
We're not linked to any political parties. I've never voted because half my life, if not a bit more, hasn't been in this country anyway. But so I've actually never voted in an Irish vote. So this will be my first time. And we did say on the show last week, if you've heard last week's show, we heard about the 3 things that Sinn Féin did. 1, they pay their politicians an industrial wage, i.e. 40,000. They don't pay them about 120 grand like most TDs. They were the only party that voted no at the Lisbon Treaty.
Yeah, that's right.
And they're the only party on their website that actually are transparent when it comes to their accounts. If you go to Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Sinn Féin, not Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and Labour, none of the websites have any accounting information on it. bar Sinn Féin. So we're not political party, we're not political people, but, don't spoil your vote, and do vote. Because if you don't vote or you spoil it, it's going to go to Fianna Fáil anyway. So, I'd say give it to Sinn Féin and just give them a go. I don't know. That's what I'm doing anyway.
That's funny. I actually had a conversation. Well, when I say a conversation, it was. Seeing as we're talking about Facebook, it was on Facebook actually. A friend of mine, and he was having a bit of a rant about the upcoming election, and he said, I won't vote for FF or FG, and I certainly won't. I won't vote for the Shinners, he said. And if the Shinners get in, I'll be on the first plane out of word. And so I couldn't miss the opportunity. So I just sent him a little message back, and I asked him, what could Sinn Féin do worse, or what could they do that would make things worse than it already is? And as it stands, Fianna Fáil, they've been in power for a hell of a long time now, and they've really messed up the country. And would it not be fair to say that Sinn Féin, they stood for all the right things, they said all the right things, their heart is in the right place, they have the cojones, I think is the word, to stand by what they say. And I mean, I think give them a go. No, I'm not. Let's say we're not affiliated. I'm not affiliated. Yeah. But if anyone wants to sponsor the show, give us a show.
Yeah, give us a go. The other program that I watch as well is a program called Vincent Brown, which is on TV3 between about 11:15 most nights of the week. And I find that interesting because there's a lot of guys on there who are not just politicians but economists, and they're always having a go, and they kind of speak their mind to a certain extent, which is it's interesting to hear what they have to say. Which is very good. So what I'm going to do is, I think what I'll be looking at is, I'm going to do a bravery certificate. Okay? Because if a Fianna Fáil TD turns up on my doorstep looking to be re-elected, I will break my heart laughing, and then I'll clap him and I'll give him a bravery certificate and go, because at the end of the day, he'd want to be, have some kind of kahunas to come and try and get re-elected after the mess they've put the country in.
Yeah, I totally agree. Are you genuine? Well, knowing you as I do, I'd say you will genuinely do what you've just said.
Yeah, of
you
course,
will do this.
Yeah, I'll have to do up a little bravery certificate and even try and get a photo with the FF, and then put it on OYM.
A photograph of you presenting the Fianna Fáil with the certificate. Yeah.
I think that'd be fantastic. And that's really what happened during the week, and that's really what's on our list. So, to wrap things up, for anybody going to the Truth Agenda next Saturday, we'll see you there.
We'll be wearing carnations.
Yeah, wearing carnations, yeah. And
nothing else.
Mum's the word. And we have faces for radio. Mind you seen that guy in America, Ted Williams?
Yes.
What a fantastic voice.
A golden voice, definitely golden.
I mean, he has a face for radio as well, but he got a golden voice, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Which kind of puts us to shame, really, because at least his voice is brilliant.
Yeah, we kind of have voices for faces for radio.
Yeah,
and we don't even. I don't know if we even have voices for radio.
Well, we have that feedback from that American website.
Yeah, you must tell the listeners about that.
Okay, we'll tell you a bit. Now, this is not our egos or anything like this. It's
not an ego trip.
It's not an ego trip.
Made me feel good though.
This was on a comment. This was on a forum on David Wilcox's website. And it said he was thanking a guy called Daniel for posting up Open Your Mind Internet Radio. He said it was a great show, and he thinks that he will actually be listening to it on a regular basis. And he said, I love listening to the guys' accents. So there you go. So hello Daniel, and thank you for that. Be gara, be golly, be gosh. Yeah, so maybe there's some people outside of Ireland who actually appreciate good Irish accents. And there's another one. Look at that now. Special K. Your voices are fine. Better than Hollywood. You sound real. Well, we are real. Better than Hollywood. Better than Hollywood. We are flesh and blood people here, Yep. Yeah, we're not putting any pretend voiceovers on, but yeah, hit the special effects, Steve. Where's it? What? No. It's just us, the way you see us. So, we're going to wrap it up. They don't see us. No, you don't. Yeah, I don't know about webcam. No, wouldn't be a good thing. No, we won't do the webcam. Leave them wondering what we look like. Yeah, just think of, kind of two Brad Pitts sitting on radio mics. Yeah. Yeah, and then, more like two armpits. Yeah, two armpits. Yeah, that's his brother, isn't it? Armpit. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up, and we just say thanks a lot for our listeners tuning in and listening to the show. Another good show. I think having Ted on was fantastic again. Great information. Next week I think is the 23rd, which should be Albert Burgess, who's an ex-police constable. And he's done a lot of research into the legal system, what's going on, and he's going to be mindful of information, and that'll be very interesting as well. For the time being, we will say goodbye as Alan James. Take care and be careful out there.
And last, final word to me, be careful out there, and if anyone has any information that they think may be beneficial or could inspire us for a future show, just drop it in an email or drop it on in the guest book or on the Facebook page. And I mean, if it's worthwhile, maybe doing a show, we will. So yeah, I'll say good night as well, and good night to all the listeners on the chat facility as well, and anyone who's listening to us during the week on the Download podcast. Hello,
and
goodbye,
and our international listeners as well. Thanks a lot for tuning in, and we do really appreciate your feedback, guys, good or bad. We have been getting emails in, and it's fantastic feedback. But if you have a criticism or you want to have a moan, by all means tell us, because the show is not just for us, it's for you guys. We're doing it for you guys to get the information out there. And if there's anything we can do to improve it, or any guests that you think might be beneficial getting on, send us an email, put it on Facebook, put it in the guest book, wherever you want to do. The facilities
because we want to be your voice.
We want to be your voice.
We are the voice of the people.
Well,
I.e. you.
It's real news, real information, the alternative media. We are going where no other radio stations go, for the simple reason is we're reporting real information.
We're going into the ladies.
No. Okay.
I heard that on a show, someone said.
Okay, listen, take care, and we'll see you again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Open your mind.